All right, so we have an interesting video here from MSNBC that I wanted to share with you. Now, this came out before the voting in Michigan, or I should say before the results came in Michigan. It was like middle of the day or, late morning on election day. And they're talking about this attempt to vote uncommitted in Michigan. And it's an organized movement to say, hey, Joe Biden, we do not support your policy vis-a-vis Gaza and Israel. Stop arming and funding Netanyahu. This is unconscionable. It's genocide. Stop, right? Like, stand up to Netanyahu, end this nonsense, permanent ceasefire immediately. And you could get the sense, even early on, that a lot of Democratic loyalists were a little shook over uncommitted. Because what ended up happening, by the way, as you all know by now, is there were 100,000 votes for uncommitted. About 13.3-ish% of the vote went to uncommitted. And the reason why that's a big deal is their goal was 10,000. They got 100,000. The cope before the results came in was, uncommitted always gets about 20,000. We're expecting like 20,000. Again, 100,000. The margin of victory for Trump in 2016 in Michigan was 10,000. Joe Biden's margin for victory in 2020 was 150,000. And then when you add in the Marianne Williamson votes and Dean Phillips votes, you're at like 145,000 votes that have defected from Biden. So we're razor thin margins. So they're a little shook over this whole uncommitted thing. They're going to talk about it here, and man, they make some wild points.
Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib, of course, backs the Biden protest vote. She voted uncommitted earlier. Listen to some of what she had to say.
When 74% of Democrats in Michigan support a ceasefire, yet President Biden is not hearing us, this is the way we can use our democracy to say, listen to Michigan, listen to the families right now that have been directly impacted, but also listen to the majority of Americans who are saying enough. No more wars. No more using our dollars to fund a genocide.
So what is the challenge there? How can the president face this? What do you say to your colleague, Congresswoman Tlaib? What should the president, how should he respond to her?
Do a ceasefire. I mean, it's really not rocket science. You know, people say, we're not going to vote for you unless you do a ceasefire immediately. It's not like, 7-dimensional chess, right? It's like, do a ceasefire, then they'll vote for you.
So, first of all, I do think we all need to be listening to this community. I lived in Dearborn for 40 years. I know how much they're hurting. And what people don't understand is how many families have really lost family members, mothers and fathers and grandmothers and aunts and uncles and cousins. There are families that have lost 20 family members, 40 family members. I have a different perspective than some. I'm glad we're talking about it now and not on October 15th. I also say to my colleague, who I talk to all the time, you do not want Donald Trump to be president. If Hamas had done this under a Trump presidency, I'm not sure that he wouldn't have just nuked Gaza, to be perfectly frank. So we have very honest, very blunt conversations, but I understand how people are hurting in this community and that they are calling for a ceasefire.
To be fair, I don't think she's necessarily wrong. I have a similar fear that if Trump was in there, even the fake breaks that are in the car now with the Democratic administration, they wouldn't be there. There would be no even fake PR level ass covering, finger wagging, hey, killing civilians is bad. It would just be like, we're on Israel's side. They do whatever the fuck they want. And so you do run the risk of, maybe we'd have double the civilian casualties. Maybe he would allow, maybe not nuking, because then you'll get nuclear fallout in Israel proper, but whatever, quadruple the size of bombs, right? Like, I do think that's on the table. I think that's all fair. But here's the thing. Look at the conversation we're having. Look at this conversation. It's like, do you want the genocide light or genocide regular? Right? Genocide light or genocide extra? Like, which would you like? And it's like, you can't put people in that position, man. Look, I'm reasonable. I'm willing to entertain the lesser evil voting conversation for sure, within bounds of reason. Like, it can't be like, genocide light's just light, bro. That's all that is. So look, I don't think Debbie Dingle's a bad person. She actually made very clear there that she does take these people seriously, and people lost all their family members, et cetera, et cetera. But what I would say to her and anybody who's sympathetic is, well, then the bulk of the conversation should put the onus on Joseph Raisinette Biden. Like, that's what you have to do. It has to be, the voters are saying very clearly, if you do this, then you'll gain support, right? We saw it's anecdotal. It was only a few voters, but that little Michigan focus group the other day of Democratic voters who are not supporting Biden at the moment. And basically half of them said, if he does a ceasefire, yeah, I might do it. And the other half said, I'm not doing it because he's already supporting a genocide. And no matter what he does from here on out, he was supporting a genocide. And so I'm not going to do it. But like, okay, would you rather gain 50% of their votes or 0% of their votes? And the answer, it shouldn't even be a question, because it's just a math thing. But the answer is, you'd rather get 50% of their votes. And the idea like, oh yeah, but maybe we'll lose some votes if we do a ceasefire. Nonsense. Every poll shows. Poll just came out. 67% of the country wants a ceasefire. It's still a majority of Republicans, and 77% of Democrats want a ceasefire. This isn't a close question. It's just not. The forces pushing in the other direction, it's just the Israel lobby. It's just AIPAC. It's just DMFI. Yes, they have a lot of money. Yes, they fund a lot of campaigns. Yes, that influences their decisions. But it's your political ass on the line, Joe Biden. So from a moral perspective and an ethical perspective, do the right thing. And also from an electoral perspective, to save your own ass, do the right thing. So she's not wrong that Trump maybe would make it even worse. I think that's fair. But you can't put people in a position where it's like genocide light or genocide extra. You can't do that. You should just be talking about like Biden, for the love of God. Imagine if corporate media across the board, 24/7, all day, every day, was out there saying, you are going to lose unless you do a full ceasefire. You are going to lose unless you do a full ceasefire. If Biden's own staffers became fully convinced of that fact, they would start pushing him to do a full ceasefire. The pressure has worked previously. It should work now. So the media should be covering this the proper way, and then that'll put pressure on the staffers to try to shove him in the right direction, because clearly he ain't going to go there willingly. He has to be shoved there. So instead of having this conversation, well, the other guy would nuke Gaza, let's put the onus where it belongs. Do a frickin' ceasefire. We shouldn't have to beg to stop the arming of a genocide. This is how low the bar has fallen. This is how decrepit our rotten, degrading empire is. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.